A common man walked for hours, his mind heavy with troubling thoughts. Life felt like an endless struggle, and he felt lost, uncertain of his purpose. He had reached a point where the weight of it all seemed unbearable, and he couldn't find peace. He came across a monk sitting quietly by the river, and in his desperation, he approached him. "Excuse me, sir," the common man said. "How do you find peace in a world so full of chaos and suffering?" The monk, who had a calm and compassionate demeanor, looked at him kindly and gestured for him to sit beside him. "Peace is not something you find out there in the world," the monk explained. "It comes from within." "But how can I find peace when everything around me feels so overwhelming?" the common man asked. The monk smiled gently, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding. "The world will always be what it is, full of joys and sorrows. We cannot change that, but we can change how we relate to it." He turned toward the river that flowed beside them. "Imagine this river," he said. "It flows constantly, through rocks and valleys, in sunshine and rain. It doesn't fight the obstacles in its path. It flows around them, over them, through them. Life is like this river, constant, flowing, and sometimes challenging, but how we flow with it is what determines our peace." The common man was still troubled, his mind caught in a storm of thoughts. "But what if I'm stuck in a storm?" he asked. "What if the waves are too strong and I can't keep going?" The monk stood up and motioned for the common man to follow him. Together they walked toward a small wooden boat resting by the riverbank. "Let's go for a ride," the monk suggested. As they pushed the boat into the water and sat down, the monk continued. "You said you feel stuck. That's like being in a boat during a storm. The waves toss you around and you feel helpless. But the boat doesn't fight the storm. It adjusts. It turns with the wind, rides with the waves." The common man nodded, beginning to understand. "So, you're saying that life's difficulties aren't meant to break us, but to teach us how to deal with them?" "Exactly," the monk replied. "The storm will pass, and when it does, the boat will be stronger for having navigated through it." The common man paused, reflecting on this. "But what about the suffering of others? I see so many people struggling. Why does life have to be so hard?" The monk smiled and reached into his robe, pulling out a small seed. "This is a seed," he said. "If I plant it in the ground, water it, and care for it, it will one day grow into a tree." The common man looked at the seed intrigued. "Yes, I understand, but what does this have to do with suffering?" The monk held up the seed thoughtfully. "When I plant this seed, it doesn't grow overnight. The seed must push through the soil, struggle to reach the sunlight. With each struggle, it grows stronger and healthier, and one day it will blossom into something beautiful." He looked at the common man with a deep, sincere gaze. "Suffering is like that seed. It's uncomfortable. It pushes us to our limits, but it's also what makes us grow. The struggles of life teach us strength, patience, and resilience. Without them, we would never discover our true potential." The common man thought for a moment, processing this new perspective. "So, suffering isn't something to avoid, but something to learn from?" "Yes," the monk affirmed. "Life is a teacher. It doesn't always give us what we want, but it gives us what we need to grow." As the boat glided down the river, the sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a peaceful glow over the scene. The common man sat quietly, his mind beginning to settle as he reflected on the monk's words. After a while, the common man spoke again. "But I still don't understand. What is the ultimate purpose of life? Why are we here if it's just to struggle and suffer?" The monk smiled softly, his voice filled with quiet wisdom. "The purpose of life is not to seek happiness or avoid pain. It's to find meaning in each moment, to learn, to grow, and to connect with the world around you. Life is not a destination, it's a journey. It teaches you how to live with love, compassion, and gratitude. If you live each moment with awareness and kindness, you'll find that peace was never outside of you. It was always inside." The monk paused, gazing up at the sky, as if contemplating the vastness of the world. "We spend so much time searching for answers, but the greatest wisdom often lies in learning to live the questions. Life itself is the answer." As the boat reached the shore, the common man stood up, feeling lighter, his face now reflecting a new sense of clarity. He looked at the monk, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you, my friend," he said. "I thought I was lost, but now I see that peace isn't about escaping life's challenges. It's about embracing them with grace." The monk nodded, a gentle smile on his face. "Remember, the storm will always pass. Life is a journey, and each moment is a step. When you walk with awareness and love, you will find your way." The common man bowed in respect before walking away. his heart lighter and his mind at peace. As he walked, the camera lingered on the monk who smiled serenely, knowing that the common man's journey had just begun.